Welcome to our second 2023 season preview edition of Bruce Monen's Computer Points Podcast. I'm Bruce Monen, your host. Also, again, we have our co-host, executive producer, and chief researcher, Rebekah Monen.
Always nice to talk to you sometimes there, Dad. We don't always get to do it in the regular life.
That's true.
You're not very good at answering text messages, and I'm not either.
Well, about the time we drop this episode, Rebekah and I shall be seeing each other in person, and then we can ignore each other, while we're face-to-face instead of from a distance.
Drive Mom a little crazy.
Always a good thing, yes.
Well, I don't know about that.
Though this is a new episode, we still have our guest from the previous episode, Mr. Van Wright. Thanks for coming back, Van.
Bruce, I'm glad to make the trip back with you and Rebekah. Without question, one of the most gifted executive producers in this great country.
Oh, boy.
She did come up with that good Ohio State recruit thing for us last episode.
Great researcher.
I try.
In this episode, we will preview the 29 Division 5 and Division 6 teams from our West Central Ohio coverage area. Again, we are using the results of the last 4 seasons as a guide and using some mathematical projections. We will divide these teams into 3 groups, basically. The likely playoff teams, the possible playoff teams, and the unlikely playoff teams. By the way, I failed to mention last podcast, the Ohio High School Athletic Association allowed teams the option to move up to Division I in any sport if they so desire.
Oh, by choice, not by population?
Correct. 14 teams did so in fall and winter sports, but only one in football. And that was Westerville Central, a Division II team, chose to move up to Division I. I believe it's because all their local rivals are all Division I. So, no chance on, I looked. Marion Local did not choose to go up to Division I. We didn't get rid of them that way.
That'd be quite the jump.
Yeah, they didn't let you just go up any division. You could only go up to Division I. So
no matter where you started from?
Correct. We'll see if that gets modified in the future or not. Although I know why they didn't. I can see it now. You're a good Division III team. Some Division IV team moves up that you don't think you can beat to your division. Then that Division III team says, oh, we'll go to Division II then. And then that Division II team up there says, I don't want to play that good Division III team, so they move up to Division I, and then there's all kind. You have to have it done by secret ballot on a certain date or something. I don't know. So
yeah, it opens the door to a lot of politicking that is not always needed. But honestly, if Marion Local wanted to go to Division I think they could hold their own. I don't think they'd do very well, but I don't think they'd be winless.
Well, as someone says, that would not affect their regular season schedule.
Right, just the playoffs.
A team like Marion Local would not survive a 10-game Division I schedule. The depth issues would kill them over time. Any one game, maybe.
Gotcha.
That wears on you through 10 weeks of playing those bigger schools over and over and over again. And that's where the problem would come in.
Okay.
By the way, I left you all off the hook a little bit easy last week. My favorite sporting event of the year, the Tour de France, is going on right now. When this drops, they should be heading into the final weeks, coming out of the Pyrenees and heading for the Alps. Going to finish in Nice this year. The first time they do not finish in Paris.
Are they avoiding Olympics preparations?
They are definitely avoiding Olympics preparations. They said it would have been totally impossible with all the Olympic madness going on in Paris right now already, actually.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I was going to say, it's been an exciting tour already. There's been records set a couple times. We've already had our first Eritrean stage championship winner.
Absolutely.
And of course, Mr. Mark Cavendish got his 35th stage win, breaking the record of most stage wins ever gotten in the Tour de France by one person.
I was going to mention I ran across Jim Valvano's ESPY speech, his famous one the other day. And he said you should do 3 things every day for a good life. The number 1 is you should laugh every day.
Sure.
I think I checked that one off. I'm pretty good at laughing.
Yeah, you do pretty well at that.
Number 2 is you should spend some time in thought. I think I do pretty decent at that one too. I'm down to 2. But number 3 is You should have your emotions move to tears every day. Now, that's one I don't think we all hit, especially not some guy that wants to avoid being seen crying in public.
Yeah, that'll limit you.
Like I say, Rebekah gave you a hint, but I would say that last week I had a day where I had my emotions moved to tears quite a bit, and no one except my family would have any idea why. But when old Mark Cavendish got his 35th Tour de France stage win, beat Eddie Merckx's record, there was a few tears rolling down the old face that day, I tell you. And that's a guy we as a family kind of grew up with when we started watching the tour. This guy came on, British guy, uses the F-bomb about every fourth word.
Oh, yeah.
Raced with absolutely no abandon, no fear. And that's why he won so much. And then things kind of went bad in life. He had some bad crashes. He had Epstein-Barr, which if you have chronic fatigue, it's kind of tough to be a distance athlete. Then he went through a bout of depression, and it looked like his career was over 2-3 times. And he took a job with a team that wasn't paying him 1 year, and their main sprinter wrecked like a week before the tour. And as a desperate move, they called him up, and he wins 4 stages, like the star of the race, with no preparation, not ready at all, to tie Eddie Merckx's record. And then the next year, he doesn't get invited to go to the race. The year after, he crashes and breaks his collarbone in what was supposed to be his final season.
Yep.
Decided he couldn't retire after that. He's now 39 years old, which is ancient in bicycle riding, and doubly
Especially for a
ancient among
sprinter.
sprinters.
Yeah.
Yep. And when he came through that the other day, weaved through traffic, kind of used the old man guile to outthink everyone else and get that stage win, I was a happy man. I tell you, it was fun to watch.
It was an interesting experience for me because it was a work day, as most of these are, and I wasn't following it at all. Just kind of check in at the end of the day how everything's going. And Mom sends a text message to the group chat. It's like, oh, Cav won. Oh, that's nice. And then I turn to my coworker who is a not really competitive bicycler, but he does Ironmans a lot in his free time and does training rides with Cavendish virtually.
Okay.
On his stationary bicycle. And I was like, hey, Cavendish won. And he like freaked out over there in the corner. And we were like looking up things on our computers. And it was like 2 minutes after the stage win. So there was not a lot of content ready to go. But it was a fun afternoon.
Kind of fun being a fan of a odd sport, and sometimes in a way, one that other people aren't. It's like you just saw history happen, and nobody else in town cares or noticed.
Yeah, very much
it's kind of interesting.
Sure, that sounds like it's great to be emotionally involved in something at that level. I think it's good for you, like Jim Valvano said. It's good to care about something like that. I'm glad they're finishing in Nice, because Nice is kind of the new darling of the Riviera, as Rebekah knows in her travels. Cap Antibes, some of the other areas there are kind of the flashy places, but Nice is on a comeback, Bruce, and it's coming back all the way with the Tour de France finishing there this year.
And in a bonus for those of us who are cycling fans, and maybe even for a few who aren't, they are finishing with a time trial.
Ooh.
Which hasn't happened since 1989, when Greg LeMond came from behind, upset the great French champion, to win the race by 8 seconds on the final day time trial, and the French have refused to end the race on the time trial ever since.
Wow.
So
yeah,
there's
talk
hope.
about your potential for drama there.
There are 4 guys right now who are the favorites coming in, and none of them have hurt themselves in the first week, which is not as unusual as you might think. Quite often we lose a couple of riders to crashes and things early on. And this year it looks like they might all be there. So I have something to look forward to at the end of July.
That's good.
But in the end of August, we will have high school football. So let's get back to that, huh?
Please, let's do.
Division 5, Region 18. It's the Liberty region. We have 2 likely playoff teams, Liberty Center and Liberty Benton. Until proven otherwise, Liberty Center is the beast of this region, in my opinion. The Tigers' closest regular season game last year was a 35-14 win over 7-3 Defiance Tenora.
Oh boy.
They ended their playoffs with close wins over Coldwater and Valley View, and then they lost the state title game by a touchdown to Perry, which saddened us, at least until we interviewed the Perry coach and had such a good time with the Perry coach here on this podcast that I'm no longer quite as sad about that. Our other team we follow here, Liberty Benton, had a solid 9-1 year before losing to 5-5 Marengo Highland in the first round of the playoffs. Upset I wasn't expecting. Maybe another team that might be motivated for the first round of the playoffs this year.
Bruce, as I said, I was in Hancock County all year this year for the first time. I mean, I spent some time there helping for Bowling Green, but this year I was all in there. You walk into Liberty Benton, you talk to Principal Gherkin, he's talking about that game. The principal, not just the coaching staff, not just the players, the principal. Principal Gherkin has said, we are looking for revenge, looking to take things one step further at Liberty Benton, home of the Eagles. Watch out for Liberty Benton.
Watch out for the Eagles. Well, if Rebekah, mark that down. Put that right next to that other team I forgot already.
Ben Logan.
Ben Logan, yes. Okay. Moving down south to Region 20 here in Division 5. We have 24 teams, so only 8 teams will miss the playoffs. It might only take 4 to 5 wins to make sure you're in the postseason. We follow many teams in this region. Of our more likely playoff teams, we have Versailles, Milton Union, and West Liberty Salem. Possible teams, Indian Lake, Miami East, Lima Bath, and St. Paris Graham. And our unlikely playoff teams are Canham, which, boy, tough last couple of years, but boy, they had a tradition before that of being up there and being a playoff type team. I'm surprised they've taken the tumble they have there. I'm guessing there was a coaching change or something happened there. Of these teams, Versailles, brand new to this region. They were the state runner-up in Division 6 last year. As their reward, they move up a division, play a little tougher playoff schedule potentially. Milton Union had a bit of a slow start. Then they rolled through the Three Rivers Athletic Conference before they lost in the final game to DeGraff Riverside. Then they lost again in the first round of the playoffs. So they had a great middle of the season, not so good on either end. So maybe another school to thinking hard about that first round of the playoffs next year.
Yep.
Keep Milton Union in mind there. West Liberty Salem, they come up from Division 6 also. They rolled through most of the Ohio Heritage Conference last year before losing in the second round of the playoffs. The teams that are maybe have to struggle a little more to make the postseason, Indian Lake moves south from Region 18 last year. They were 7-3. Ran into Coldwater in the playoffs, cost them their postseason. Miami East had 6 wins, but since none of those teams ended the season with more than 3 victories, the Vikings only finished 14th in the computer points. That got them a tough game against number 3 Brookville in the first round of the playoffs, which they lost. So you need to beat some teams that had some wins if you want to rack up the computer points. Lima Bath, one of those middle-of-the-road WBL teams, won 4 games last year, but they had victories over a 5-5 New Bremen team. They beat Elida, so they ended up 15th in Region 14 last year. Lost to Cleveland Glenville in the opening round of the playoffs. Yeah, everyone's going to lose to Cleveland Glenville in the opening round of the playoffs. That's
correct.
It didn't help that they then had to make a 3 or 4 hour bus drive before they had to play Cleveland Glenville. That's just adding insult to injury there.
Yeah, or gasoline cost, diesel cost to the injury, right?
Oh, yes.
Maybe toll road prices too.
Ooh, yeah, quite possible. Yeah.
Yeah, in this group, I think Versailles, gosh, what a great story they've been the last, you follow them so closely, Bruce, such a great story there the last 4 or 5 seasons, and they're just going to continue. West Liberty Salem, home of the Tigers, I'm a Tigers fan. When I walk in there, it's a demeanor, we're winners. We're winners. I like West Liberty. I'm concerned right now. I'm concerned for my guys at Bath right now. I want them to get the job done. I'm concerned. Will they be get to the top, get toward the top, or will they be in the bottom of the Western Buckeye League? That I'm a little concerned for my guys there. And I love them all there, but I'm a little concerned. Indian Lake, I don't know if you realize this, Bruce, this was the biggest year in Bowling Green history in admissions at Indian Lake. We have never had more Lakers choose Bowling Green in any year in 114 years than this year. Despite a tornado hitting, a million things going wrong for them, Indian Lake and Bowling Green have been together like no other time. So I'm pulling for the Lakers in every way, and I want to thank that community and congratulate them for overcoming so much this year.
Absolutely. Any idea was there anything that made the Indian Lake Bowling Green, or is it just one of those things that happens statistically from time to time?
Some of it is cyclical, essentially what you're saying, Bruce. Sometimes, though, you have students who, I'll be honest, just key into what I say, that they're at the meetings, they're thinking, they're following kind of maybe some leads I give them to do things early. Let's look at this. Let's visit. Above all else, let's get to the campus. So those are big things. Miss Wygant, their guidance counselor there, a shout out to Ms. Wygant, not because she's sending people to Bowling Green, but she's a great professional. So guidance counselors, unsung heroes in many of these schools for everything, including athletes and just regular students.
All right. I wanted to go back to your talking about Lima Bath, also the smallest enrollment school in the WBL. That's one of those teams that if they can get through the regular season, they may be prepared for the playoffs, but they have to survive the regular season first.
Absolutely, Bruce. If they can get there, when you tell me that Bath is now smaller than OG, that is really something compared to where it was 15, 20 years ago. I'm not a statistics guy, but I mean, the district has shrunk. Let's be honest. It shrunk for a variety of reasons, nothing against them. So you're right. If they can get in, they might have some success.
All right. We mentioned Graham. They missed the postseason last year with a 1-9 record. They're also coming down from Division 4, so it should be. Arcanum just missed the Division 6 playoffs last year with a 3-7 record, mostly because 2 of their wins were over teams that ended up with no victories on the season. And they're going to have it a little tougher in Division 5 this year, qualifying for the playoffs, than they did in Division 6 last year. They're going to need a few more victories over teams that win some games.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Trojans. I go down there and I walk across the street to where the football stadium is still where the old school was. You got the walkway in there. I mean, it's a beautiful setting, Bruce. When you go to Arcanum and you watch a game there, it's a beautiful setting, but we've got to get back in our winning ways there. We got to get back to the tradition. We got to get back. We got to build on that. And I hope this is the year they do it.
All right. And that wraps up Division 5. Moving on to Division 6. We're following 3 regions in Division 6, actually. We'll start with the big one here. Region 22 up in the northwest quadrant. There are 27 teams in this region. I predict 4 to 5 wins needed to get in the playoffs. And this is one of those regions that's going to be heavily loaded towards the middle for teams we follow. First, our likely playoff teams. I show Bluffton, Patrick Henry, and Defiance Tenora as having very good shots of making the playoffs. The teams that are possible, that are more borderline, include Allen East, Envoy Crestview, Parkway, Paulding, Spencerville, Wayne Trace, Riverdale, and Van Buren. And I just looking at it, that looks like a lot of teams that could break. If they all played each other, the games could kind of go either way type teams. And then we have 2 teams that are unlikely to make the playoffs. That would be Sherwood Fairview. I have at 25 and Hicksville at 27. Hicksville's another team that's been on the downturn for far too long now.
I feel bad for the Aces. Bruce, you're right. The Aces at Hicksville, again, the nickname alone should be worth 2 or 3 wins. It hasn't happened recently. We love the Aces. In that middle group, watch the Wayne Trace Paulding score. Rebekah always follows the schedule. She's on top of it. She researches like no other. The winner of that game, circle that game. This is like Pick with Sydney from a couple podcasts ago. That is going to be the biggest game of the year for Paulding, the home of the Panthers, and the Wayne Trace Raiders. What I would want to know is where is the game being played? Because if you play this game at Wayne Trace, you say, watch out Panthers, because Wayne Trace, the fans are rabid.
Okay, so our chief researcher says, what's that about that game?
It'll be week 5, and then it'll be at Paulding.
Okay.
That's Paulding.
All right. All right. Panthers, the Panthers need to come through. Big matchup. Circle it.
All right. Oh, in this region, Columbus Grove would have been the big favorite or one of the big favorites in recent years. They dropped down to Division 7 this year. That makes Bluffton our odds-on favorite for the finish at the top of the standings in the region. Pirates were 9-1 last year. Yeah,
Pirates are the real deal, Bruce. I mean, they're going to be good. They're going to be good. You got those 3 teams. You're the master at it. You're looking at the records, but Patrick Henry, Sonora, and Bluffton, all 3 of them are going to be good. Bluffton has a lot of offensive weapons. These guys will score points.
Now the question is, can they stop others from scoring points?
We're not worried about that if we score 43. Pulling the 42, we're not worried.
I say last year, Bluffton, their only loss was to Columbus Grove by a touchdown in the regular season.
Right.
And then they beat Columbus Grove by a touchdown in the playoffs. So they took it back. So always nice to get a little vengeance.
Especially in the playoffs.
Oh, yes. Playoffs is the best time for vengeance. Revenge is a dish best served in the playoffs.
Sure.
I don't know if that works.
It's not bad.
As Van mentioned, always watch out for Patrick Henry. They were the Region 26 champion in Division 7 last year, moving up to Division 6 this year. And Defiance Sonora, another tough team, won their last 5 regular season games last year, 3 by shutout. Or they suffered a tough overtime loss in the first round of the playoffs. Seems to be a theme. We have a lot of teams that are not going to be happy of how their season ended in the first round of the playoffs last year. Now, as we mentioned, this region is loaded with teams down there in the middle. Van mentioned the Paulding especially getting to host that crucial game. I look it over, I see Allen East got in with a 4-6 record last year, thanks to beating 6-4 Arlington during the season. Spencerville got in to the Division 5 playoffs with a 3-7 record. They had a win over 6-4 Paulding to give them a bunch of computer points. Envoy Crestview went 6-4 and just barely snuck in with 6 wins. They didn't defeat anyone who had a winning record, which is why they needed all 6 wins. Paulding about the same way last year, didn't defeat anyone with a winning record, but got in with enough wins. Parkway snuck in at 2-8 last year, but they beat 9-1 North Central, and that was 2 years in a row. They got a ton of points from beating this North Central school. North Central is no longer scheduling Parkway this year.
I wonder why.
Not taking the phone calls. That's similar to Missouri and Bowling Green football. Missouri, we played them 4 times, beat them 3. They see the phone come in. They see the phone ring in Bowling Green. Don't answer. Their AD says don't answer. That's what North Central said. Don't answer. Parkway calling.
Now, when Bowling Green beat Missouri 3 out of 4 times, when they called, were they still trying to get a check out of Missouri for the game?
Well, in Missouri, you're right, Bruce. It's hard for these big powers when they got to pay us the money, and then we walk away from their homecoming with a victory with their 75,000 fans complaining. So that's how we like to do it. We like to win and get paid. Show me the money, and we beat you. Ask Georgia Tech.
Tell them to get on their private plane and fly to Bowling Green Airport, huh?
They're welcome to come play us in Bowling Green. Georgia Tech might have had a better chance the way it went last year. We scored 38 points in a row down there in Atlanta, Bruce. I don't know if you remember that. 38 in a row, ACC. How are we looking? Not good.
And as you might guess, we are not only looking forward to the high school football season here, but college football is a coming too. We like to be following that pretty close too. You'll see Van in his orange shoes down on the field. I don't know how many times this year, right?
Every year, every game, Bruce. Every game.
Every game.
Every game.
Missing the playoffs last year, we had Wayne Trace. They were 4-6. They did not defeat anyone with 3 wins. That'll get you left out of the playoffs. Riverdale, 4-6. They did beat one team who had 3 wins, but the other 3 did not. And Van Buren was 3-7, so they had 1 less win. They had a win over 4-6 Riverdale, but that was not good enough. So either need to get some upsets or just go out there and win 6 games. That'll get you in the playoffs pretty much every time these days. And as we said before, big improvements going to be needed for Sherwood Fairview. They were 2-8 last year. Tough schedule though, but 2-8. Yeah, it doesn't matter how tough your schedule is if you don't win any of them. And Hicksville, they did get a win last year. They beat winless Swanton, was their only win. We're going to move over now to Region 23. We have one team we follow in this region. I think, Rebekah, if I remember right, things shifted last year. We didn't have to follow Region 23. Well, they've shifted again, and it's back. Mechanicsburg has been moved up from Division 7 and slotted in here in Region 23. Triad has also been put into Region 23.
So we're following two teams.
Two teams this year instead of usually it's one when we get Region 23. Mechanicsburg had a down year last year. I still like them to make the playoffs. A lot of tradition there. Triad, I have projected as number 22, so they're on below the cut line as we look at it before the season starts. That's just one better win than we're expecting, and they're right back in the hunt. Mechanicsburg, I said they had a down year last year. They went 6-4. That was a down year for Mechanicsburg. Triad 1-9 last year, but they almost beat Mechanicsburg in week 10 of the regular season. I think that Mechanicsburg win might have been enough for Triad last year if they could have pulled that off. I forget the score, but it was less than a touchdown, I'm pretty sure.
That is a big rivalry over there, Bruce. I mean, you're talking Champaign County, where they put the notches on the gun. So I mean, you got to get if you're Triad, if they'd have won that game, if they hadn't have made the playoffs, they would have made their entire year. That's how much they dislike Mechanicsburg. The Cardinals are rebuilding. Mechanicsburg reloading. Watch out for Mechanicsburg.
As I remember, we saw Mechanicsburg 2 years ago and noted that they were a young team then and were going to be an even younger team last year.
Yep.
They can only be older this year. I don't think that team could get any younger than they were last year. So
watch out. Watch out.
Yep. I agree. Watch out. And moving down south, and this is unusual for us, Rebekah, Region 24, we're only following 4 teams in Region 24.
That just tells me that we're following far too Division 7.
But, well, we shall see on our next podcast. That's for sure.
That's what that means to me.
You're probably right there. Although we already had a boatload in the northwest quadrant here in Region 22 of Division 6. So our likely playoff teams, I have down Coldwater and Anna. A couple of MAC teams there likely for the playoffs. Unlikely teams, Lima Perry and Covington. Lima Perry, down year, they were just good not too long ago. I'm curious to see if they pop back. Covington, I don't know what happened over there, but they went from never doing worse than 8 wins in a season to hardly winning a game these days.
I love calling on those schools, Bruce. At Perry, the situation is getting the athletes out for football. As you know, basketball is kind of the king there among the boys' sports. They're very, very competitive in basketball and actually in baseball also. But they need to get their athletes out for football because these are smaller schools, hence the division. So I wish Perry well. I think Covington is still going to be down, and it's tough. I mean, I love that school. I love that town. A little fewer students. A little bit of a concern.
They talk about colleges have to recruit well, and some would say that pretty much goes for private high schools also. Public high schools have to recruit the halls, or have to get those kids out of the halls and onto the team.
You're 100% right. I mean, it's true at every high school, bigger and small, but the smaller the school, the more important it is to have your athletes out for football. And I'm not saying everybody needs to go do that, but if they don't, then you have situations like Perry where you might win just a couple football games and go out and win 17 basketball games.
All right. Now we look at this a little closer. Coldwater were in Division 5 last year, finished 6th in their region with a 9-1 record. They lost in the Region 18 final to Liberty Center. So you go 9-1 with a loss to Marion Local. You lose in the playoffs to Liberty Center, and then you go down a division this year. That sounds like a scary team in Division 6.
Scary. I mean, they're going to be tough. I mean, they're going to be tough to beat in this Division 6, the way this lays out. And you guys are the experts on computer points and divisions, but oh my goodness. I mean, Coldwater could cut quite a swath through this part of it.
Now, if you look at the chart here on the YouTube page for Region 24, I see the teams that are ahead of them in the computer points projections are Portsmouth West and Cincinnati Country Day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Coldwater coaching staff is quaking in their boots at playing Portsmouth West and Cincinnati Country Day come playoffs.
No, I agree with you. I think I'm sure those teams are good, but Cincinnati Country Day historically is not, in recent years, has not really done as well as maybe people thought. So I know they're well regarded, but I'll look for Coldwater to be better than those guys. I'll be honest.
One of their tougher fights might come from Anna. Anna was
absolutely
only 5-5. Only 5-5 last year, but that was good enough for them to finish 8th in the computer points, partly due to a win over 7-3 Indian Lake during the regular season. We mentioned Lima Perry and Covington. They were actually both had down seasons last year, and they were in Division 7 last year, and now they have to move up to Division 6. Not how you want to rebuild a program by moving up, but maybe there's more kids there. They can recruit the halls a little better from a bigger pool. Maybe there's some positive there. Lima Perry had 3 wins, but those opponents had a combined 4 wins between them last year, which is why they missed the playoffs. Covington had the big 0-10 last year, or however many games they played. No wins last year, so nowhere to go but up for Covington. So once again, that's Division 5 to Division 6. Anything else we need to add for that, guys?
Watch out for Coldwater.
I was just taking a peek at Country Day's sports offering. They've got some more options, we'll say, than the local Auglaize Mercer County school compete against
And
the
there-
football recruit.
And we've seen it in the past out of Cincinnati area schools. The higher division teams in football seem to be pretty good.
Yep.
The lower division teams, they can do okay locally, but they seem to lose their best players to the big statewide powers. And so it's harder for them to keep a good team together in the small divisions now.
If I remember
Well,
right,
that
they usually put up a pretty good cross-country team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that wraps up this podcast. I'll let Rebekah off the hook this time. Once again, these podcasts are available on Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Just search for Bruce Mana's Computer Points. And once again, we are hoping to field more questions or comments during our regular season podcast. Just email them here to bdmonin@nktelco.net or submit them on X to @BruceMonin. That's Twitter for all you people who aren't hip on the fact that it changed like a year and a half.
And I'm sure anyone who's still on it knows.
Although, if you ever look on your lap, if you're old and use like a desktop or a laptop, if you look up in the box, the web page address for X is twitter.com, by the way. Whoa.
Oh, that
And
was
that
you.
beep tells us we're out of here. So hope you enjoyed it, and tune in back within about a week or so when we do the rest of the schools for our preview here on Bruce Monin's Computer Points.